Hey guys, in today's video we're gonna talk about package management on macOS. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic is because as I talk about various pieces of software in this channel that are useful for language learning, there will be situations where it's gonna be easier to install a piece of software by using a package manager rather than by going to a website and then downloading the piece of software and then installing it. For instance, I made tutorials previously about MPV Player. And the easiest way that I know of to install MPV Player on a Mac is by using a package manager called Homebrew. I also write software myself, and sometimes I'll need the user to install dependencies, and oftentimes the easiest way to do so is by using a package manager as well. On Linux, using a package manager is the default way that you install programs on your computer, because each Linux distribution comes with a package manager built into the system. For example, if you were using Debian Linux, you would open up a terminal and you would type in sudo apt-get install mpv, for example. And then you would hit enter and enter your password, and then the package manager would download the software from the internet and then install it. On a Mac, however, you don't have a package manager built into the system by default, so you have to install one yourself if you want to use one. And the two most popular package managers for Mac are called Macports and Homebrew. And here I have their websites open. So here's the Macports website and here's the Homebrew's website. And so in this video I'm going to walk you through the installation of both Macports and Homebrew, talk about their basic usage, and also talk about a way that you can customize their installation a little bit, which I personally find has some benefits over the default way of installing them. And I wrote a couple of scripts that will help you install Macports and Homebrew in this customized way, but I'll talk about those scripts a bit later in this tutorial. Now, before we get into the main part of this tutorial, there's one very important thing that I want to mention, and that is, since both Macports and Homebrew are command line programs and you'll have to use the terminal to use them, if you are a beginner to the terminal, to command line, I would highly encourage you to make a complete backup of your system before you do anything that I explain in this tutorial. And that is not because the terminal is somehow dangerous and that it will destroy your system or something. In fact, if you are a beginner or if you've never used the terminal before, or if you've used it just very little, I would highly encourage you to learn it, because it's a completely different way of interacting with your system. It'll completely change the way you do things on your computer, and in a very good way. It'll allow you to do things that you weren't able to do before. But you just have to be a bit careful when using it, especially while you're learning it. So on a Mac, there is a Time Machine, the backup system that is built into this to macOS, and I highly encourage you to use it and make a complete backup of everything on your system before you proceed. Okay, so now let's start with the main part of this tutorial. So the first thing that you need to do to install both Macports and Homebrew, this is something that you need to do to install either one of them or both of them, and that is that you need to install Xcode. Xcode is an application, is Apple's application that you can download from the App Store. And then once you installed it, you need to install command line tools that come with it. So to install those command line tools, you open up a terminal and you need to type Xcode select -- install. So once you type that, then you hit enter, and a small window will pop up, and it'll ask you if you want to install the command line tools. You click OK. I think there is also a license agreement or something like that. But then you just click OK, and it'll install the command line tools that you need, that both Macports and Homebrew need to work. So that's something you need to do. I'm not going to do this because I already have them installed, but it's very simple. There's nothing complicated. One thing to mention about Xcode is if you're running, basically, if you, for some reason, for whatever reason, are unable to install it from the App Store, maybe you don't want to use the App Store, or the version that is on the App Store doesn't work with your system, maybe you have an older macOS version or something like that, you can also go to this page on the Apple website and then follow this link where it says Downloads page. And there you'll need to log in with your Apple ID, and then you'll be able to download any version of Xcode and then just install it manually. Now, I've already mentioned that I prefer to install both Macports and Homebrew in a customized way, and that is different from the default way that basically from the default installation instructions that you'll find on the websites. But I thought I'll go through the default way of installing it first, because that'll both explain better why I prefer it to do a different way, and also will provide just instructions for those users who prefer to do it the default way. So let's take a look. So let's start with Macports. On the Macports website, you just go to this link installing Macports, and on that page you'll find a link. Here are a bunch of links for different versions of macOS, which will allow you to download a package installer, and then you just use that installer to install the package manager, and that's it. And here you also see the instructions for installing Xcode and command line tools. So if you have any trouble installing Xcode, take a look here, because they have very clear instructions about how to install it. So now let's take a look at Homebrew. For Homebrew, you do it a bit differently. You basically have to run a command in your terminal. What you need to do is you need to just copy this command and then just paste it into your terminal. This is actually a much simpler way of installing it compared to Macports. It's much faster and, well, more straightforward. But basically you paste in the command and then you hit enter, and that will install Homebrew to the default location. Basically that's the default way of installing it. My preferred way is to install it into a different location, into a custom location. So that's what's different about my preferred way. But this will install it the default way. So very simple, just one command, and then the package manager is installed. So before we start talking about the customized installation and the usage of Macports and Homebrew, I thought I'd first mention a couple of important differences between them, differences about how they work in general, and those things are good to keep in mind when using them. So basically, one of the main differences between how Macports and Homebrew work is that Macports compiles each piece of software that you want to install from scratch. It compiles the entire thing. Now, compiling is basically takes the source code and then it runs certain operations to basically give you the final piece of software that you can actually use. That's like the basic way of thinking about it. Like, it's not just code, but it's a program that you can run. And so that process of compiling takes some time. And so because Macports compiles everything from scratch, it's quite a bit slower in when it comes to installation time. But it all depends on the program that you are installing, and sometimes it's not that long, but sometimes it can take quite long. If you're installing some big piece of software that has lots of dependencies, it has to install lots of packages, and it has to compile all of them, then it might take hours to install a piece of software. That's just how it works. It also, of course, depends on your computer and how fast it is. If you have a very fast computer, then it'll happen much faster. But in general, Macports, since it compiles everything from scratch, it takes quite a bit longer to install. But it also has a much better management tools compared to Homebrew, in my opinion, at least. For example, if you install a piece of software by using a package manager, more often than not, that piece of software will have dependencies, and those will also automatically be installed by the package manager. But then what happens is you end up with a long list of packages that you don't know which ones were the ones that you installed, that you requested to install, and which ones are the dependencies that were installed by just because the piece of software that you wanted to install needed that other package. So for Macports, the things are much easier compared to Homebrew, because it remembers which packages you requested. So if I just type port installed, I'll get a long list of packages that are installed on my system. Here are all of them. It's a very long list, but not all of those packages are the ones that I actually like, that are the programs that I wanted to install. But if I just type requested, then I'll get a list. Oops, sorry, it's installed requested. Then I'll just get a list of those that are the ones that I specifically requested Macports to install. So this is a much shorter list, and I can clearly see what I installed and what I didn't. But Homebrew doesn't have that feature. Then there is another option when it comes to uninstalling the packages. Macports has these options, like if you want to uninstall something, you would go sudo port uninstall, then whatever, like the name of the package, and you can also give it options. You can say follow dependencies, which will uninstall all the dependencies, or you can say follow dependents, and that will uninstall all the packages that depend that the package that you are uninstalling is a dependency of. So these options are also lacking in Homebrew, and I personally find that it's just much more flexible in the way that it allows you to manage the stuff that you have installed in your system. I'm not gonna go into this too deeply, but I just wanted to mention that Macports has much better management tools compared to Homebrew, and because of that, I personally prefer it, generally speaking, despite the longer installation times, because it compiles everything. But on the other hand, the way you manage your software is much easier and much more straightforward. So yeah, that's why I prefer it. Like if I want to install something, I generally check both Macports and Homebrew, and then if the version, like if Macports has the latest version, then I use Macports. But then if Macports has an older version and Homebrew has the newer version, then I use Homebrew. So that's like the way that I personally use these two package managers, the way that I choose which one to use. Alright, now let's talk about this customized installation that I kept mentioning. So basically, the deal is that when you install Macports and Homebrew the default way, they are installed in a certain location on your system. So let's take a look. For Macports, the default location is opt local. So it's the root directory, then opt local. And if I take a look at that directory, if I just list all the stuff that is in that folder, you'll see that there's already something else installed there. And for Homebrew, the default prefix is USR, or usually it's pronounced user local. So so Homebrew is installed in user local, and Macports is installed in opt local. But those locations are already kind of have something installed there. And the reason why I don't like to install package managers there is because then I don't know what came from where. I don't know if if a package that I installed came from the package manager, or was it installed by something else? Is it a system file? Is it not? So that becomes a bit of a mess, and that's why I prefer installing those package managers to custom locations and not to the default locations. Doing it this way, having a dedicated folder for your package manager, also allows you to back up the entire installation of that package manager. Like if you installed a bunch of packages and then you want to try something out, but you don't want to mess up the way everything is installed right now, you can just then copy that directory and back it up, and it makes just things much more organized, because you don't put the files that are related to the package manager and that come from something else. You don't put all of that into the same place, and also you have the possibility of backing it up much more easily. Now the installation instructions for installing to a custom prefix are you can find them on the Macports and Homebrew websites. For Macports, it's this website guide.macports.org. It's actually a good page to know, like you can like add it to your bookmarks or something, because there's a lot of good information about how to use Macports here in this guide. So the installation instructions for installing to custom prefix are, let's see, they are here under install Macports. But I already mentioned that I've written a script to do exactly this, to install Macports to a custom prefix, and my script basically just takes these instructions and executes them one after another, so that everything is done automatically. But basically the first part is over here under source install. Here it downloads the source code and then extracts the contents of that archive file. And then over here under install multiple Macports copies are the rest of the commands that are needed to install to custom prefix. So in these sections you can read about how to install to custom prefix, and you can also use my script. So now as for Homebrew, it also has its own set of instructions to install to a different location. It's over here on this page, docs.brew.sh/installation, and over here under alternative installs there is this command that allows you to install to any location that you want as well. So for Homebrew, the installation to custom prefix is much more simple. It's just one command, but basically I still made a script because that way I think it's just much more convenient. I like just having a script on my computer that I can run at any time. So that's what we're gonna take a look at now. Okay, so now let's take a look at those custom scripts that I made. Let's start with with the Macports script. So over here on my desktop I have those two scripts that I made, port install for Macports and brew install for Homebrew. So the Macports installation is a bit more complicated because you have to download the source code separately. So if I just print the text of that script to the terminal, so the port install script over here, so this is the script, and let's see, so over here I have this this command that downloads the source code. So this is the same command that you can find over here under source install, this one, same command. So I'm gonna go ahead and run this and download the source code. It's also called the tarball. The tarball is just a type of archive that this tar.bz2 file. So let's see. Now I have this this file on my desktop as well, and now I can install it. So clear the screen. Let's see. So when you download the script, you can just put it anywhere you want, but you should think about where you want to install your Macports, where you want to install Macports, basically. So I have the port install script over here on my desktop, and I can run it by typing // and then just start typing port install and then hit tab to autocomplete. And if I just run it, it'll print a message to just explaining how to use it very briefly. So you need to use it in the following way. So you type // port install, then you need to pass in the tarball file that you've just downloaded. So that was Macports whatever, the version number .tar.bz2, and then you need to pass in the prefix, basically the folder that you want to install Macports in. It can be an absolute path, for example, like home directory Macports, for example, or it can be a relative path. I'll just go ahead and use a relative path because I just want to install this test, just make this test installation right here on the desktop. I'm not going to use it, I'm just going to delete it afterwards, but just to demonstrate, I'll just call it port test, and that'll create the port test directory on my desktop. So if I had it in my home directory like this, so tilde stands for home directory, and maybe like this tilde port, that would create this port folder in that home directory. But I just want to do it on my desktop, so I'll go ahead and type port test, and you also see here that the script must be run as a root, and basically that means that you need to type sudo before it, and then it will ask you for the password, for your administrator password, basically the password that you use to log into your system. So now if I hit enter, it'll ask me for my password, and then it'll start installing Macports. So this will take a couple of minutes, and I'll fast forward through this bit. So you'll see a lot of output on your terminal here. That's normal, that's just how it works. Okay, so now we're done with the installation. Let's take a look. So now we have this port test directory on our desktop. And if I take a look inside, we see this, well, this is just how the Macports directory looks. So before I talk about a couple of other things, let's just test this brew-install script as well. So I'll clear the screen with so it's the same thing almost with the brew-install. Brew-install is much simpler though. It's just you don't need to run as root, or you don't need to download the source code either. So it's just a brew-install, and then the name of your directory where you want to install. Then just hit enter, and it just takes, I don't know, a few seconds basically. Now it's done. So Homebrew installation is much faster. Brew tests. So this is how Homebrew's directory looks. So I'm not gonna use actually those installations because I already have my own installations of Homebrew and Macports. So I'm gonna use those to talk about those package managers from now on. Okay, so now that we have our Macports and Homebrew installed, there's one more thing that we need to do before we can use them. And that is you need to add them to your path. Path is basically just a variable that contains just a list of directories, a list of folders where a terminal can search for programs. So for example, when I run port, just anything installed, for example, requested, just a command that we ran earlier, when I run that, terminal knows where to find this port binary, and it does so because the directory where that binary is located is on the path. So for example, if I type which port, it'll show me the full path to that binary. So that this is my custom prefix. This is basically the directory that I installed my Macports into. And the same thing for the Homebrew. Which brew, I get this path. Just my prefix is very long. It's just the way I did it once. If I were to just do it again, like if I were to if I was reinstalling my system, basically, I would probably choose something shorter. But that doesn't matter because basically this directory is on my path, and the way to add to path is you need to edit a text file. That text file is called .bash profile, and it is located in your home directory. So if I just change to my home directory by typing cd and then hitting enter, it will change me to my home folder. And then if I type nano bash profile, here's the file. So basically in this file I don't have any path variable, and the reason why is because I use bashrc instead. That's just the thing about basically on Linux you would use bashrc for this situation, but on a Mac you use bash profile. But I just like to use bashrc everywhere, so I have this bit of code that sources that bashrc instead. Just never mind that you can simply use this bash profile if you're a beginner, if you don't know what this means, but this is just the way I have it set up. So this is the bash profile is the file that gets read every time that you open the terminal. And in my case, it reads it, and then it also reads that bashrc file. So I'll just change to that bashrc for now, because that's where all my stuff is located. So here I have these, like never mind all this other stuff. Here I just have these Homebrew and Macports sections. And basically you need to do something similar. It's quite complicated to explain it to to beginners I think it falls beyond the scope of this tutorial a little bit, because here I have a couple of variables, and like here I have my prefix set to a variable, and then I use this variable a couple of times in this path, like when I assign this path variable. If you're not familiar with Bash, basically Bash is the shell scripting language that you use. Basically, this is written in Bash. So if you're not familiar with it, I just recommend you Google setting path on a Mac or something like that, and you'll find a good instructions to do that, like on Stack Overflow. I'm pretty sure there are good answers to explain how to do that. But basically, here I set my path. This is my prefix. I have it set to a separate variable, and then you need to add /bin and /sbin to the path. So I add both of those and separated by colons. So all the directories are separated by colons, and then I just add the rest of the path that was before, like whatever the path variable was set to before, I just add it to the end. So I add my Macports prefix /bin and Macports prefix /sbin before everything else that wasn't the path variable. Hope that makes sense. So, and I do the same thing for Homebrew. So basically, right now we're looking at these lines, only at these lines. I'll explain about the MANPATH in a second. So basically, yeah, that's what you do. For Homebrew, I have the same thing set. I have my Homebrew prefix set to a variable, and then for Homebrew, you just need a Homebrew prefix /bin, and then I add the rest of the path. So that's how you add to a path. I hope this makes sense. If you're a beginner, just Google it. It's really simple, not that complicated. So just to clarify a bit, these bin and sbin are just the folders that I just changed to my desktop again. And let's see, we have, I'll just list the support test that we installed. And here we have this bin folder and sbin. Let's take a look inside. In this bin, we have a bunch of files, but here we have this port binary, and that's what the terminal needs to find to be able to use Macports. And sbin contains something else. Right now it doesn't contain anything, but when you will be installing packages, it will, like programs will be installed there. So this way the terminal will be able to find those as well. Sbin stands for system binaries, so those are system binaries, system programs basically. So, and for Homebrew the same thing. So this is brew test bin, and there is just one file, this brew binary. So that's what we're adding to path. I'll change to my home folder again, and then open up the bash rc again. Remember that bash profile is actually the file that gets read on the Mac, but I have it changed. So yeah, so now I want to explain also about the MANPATH. MANPATH stands for manual, stands for manual, and man is just a command, again for beginners if you don't know. It's just a command that allows you to read manuals for the programs that you install. For example, if I type manport, I get the manual for Macports, and I can read it, like all the information about all of the options for Macports and how to use it. Everything's explained here. It's very useful, and that's why it's a good idea to set that MANPATH variable. And ManBrew does the same for Homebrew. And all of the programs that you will be installing with those package managers will also likely have man pages. So yeah, that's useful. So that's why you need to add those as well. You don't need to, but it's a good idea to do so. And so for MANPATH, you need to do, so let's start with Macports. So I use the same prefix again, and then the path is share/man, and then the rest of the MANPATH. And for Homebrew, the same thing. Homebrew prefix, share man, and then the rest of the MANPATH. So yeah, that's how you set those variables. Quite important to do so, well, especially for path, because you wouldn't be able to use the thing otherwise. But MANPATH is just actually something that I figured out recently, because like I had those installed, like I had the package managers installed, but I couldn't figure out like why couldn't I get the manuals. But then I found those where the manuals were located, and then I added them to the MANPATH variable, and then it solved everything. So that's great. Okay, so now let's cover some basic usage of those package managers that we've just installed. So let's see, I'll clear the screen. So the first thing that you'll need to do once you install them is to update basically the database of the packages that the package manager has. Basically, it'll just essentially download a list of those packages to your computer, and it'll update its own database. So let's see. So for Macports, the command is sudo. You need to run it as a root. Sudo port self update. And if I run that, so it says updating Macports based sources using rsync. So in the case of Macports, actually in case of both of those, I think Homebrew does this as well. It not only updates the database of packages, it also updates itself, like the package manager updates itself. So if there is a new version of Macports available, then it'll also install it. Here it says the base version is 2.6.4 installed, and the same version is downloaded, so no update is necessary. And now it's updating the ports tree, which is basically the database of packages. So this takes a few moments, but basically the point is that before you install any packages, you just need to actually get the list of the packages. So this is what it does. I'll let this finish. Okay, so this has finished. Good. In case of Homebrew, the same thing is brew update. I'm not going to run because it's going to take a while, but basically the same command, brew update for Homebrew, updates all of the sources. I'll cancel that. Okay, so that's updating. Now searching. So you can search for programs just by using these commands. So in case of Macports, it's port search. For example, let's search for MPV, and it'll give you a list. But here's our MPV player, and if you know the name of the package, you can also view information about it. So port info. So about the sudo, you need to, for some commands you need the sudo. For Homebrew you never need it. For Macports you sometimes need it when you install something, when you uninstall something, when you update the database like this, run the self update, then you need the sudo. But for viewing information, for searching, you don't need it. So port info MPV gives you information about that package. Here we go. So here we can read about information about this program. The same thing about works for Homebrew. So brew search MPV. So Homebrew has like two types of packages. one type is called a formula, and the other type is called a cask. A cask is basically just an app. It's the same thing like that you have in your applications folder on your Mac. Basically, an app, just an app that has the .app extension. So casks are just apps basically, and formulas are mostly like command line applications. And they don't have this application bundle which is just a macOS thing that like goes in your applications folder. Yeah, that's that. So here NPV is a cask in this case, but like in most cases it doesn't matter. When you install it, sometimes you need to specify that it's a cask, but that's not too complicated. So if I say brew info MPV, I'll also get the information about that package. And here it says that treating MPV as a formula for the cask, use homebrew cask MPV. Oh, there's actually formula MPV and a cask MPV. So yeah. Now I remember. So for homebrew, there's when it's a formula, it's just a command line player without the application bundle. But if you install a cask, then you get the application bundle as well. And for homebrew, I don't know if it's yeah, like you also get this applications folder inside your homebrew directory where those casks will be installed. So if you want them in your applications folder, you'll need to create a link. But yeah, that's just how it works. That's where homebrew installs its applications. I can show you my homebrew's applications folder. Let's see. Homebrew prefix applications. There I have only MPV player. The app, I can open it and find her even, just to show how it looks. Here it is. Why is it so gigantic? Yeah, so that's just the folder where all the application bundles go. And for Macports, the same is true. If I open up my Macports prefix applications, there's also a bunch of stuff over here that I have installed. So that's where Macports application bundles go. So that's that. Let's see, where were we before I went onto this tangent about application folders. Yeah, so here I got the information for when I typed brew info MPV, I got information about the formula, not the cask. So if I want information about the cask, I need to use info -- cask, I believe. Let's see, cask. Yeah, that's right. So here it says it shows the paths to where actually my MPV player that I already have installed is located. But if you don't have it installed, it'll show something different. So that's how you differentiate between formulas and casks. So if you need something for a cask, you type -- cask, and then the name. So like first brew, then the command, then -- cask, and then the name of the cask. Okay, so that's searching and info. Now installing. So installation is very simple. For Macports, it's sudo port install and then the name of your package, like this. I'm not gonna do this because it's already, well, I don't need that on Macports. I already have one installed via Homebrew, and for Homebrew it's brew-install, and then the name. Install, again, if you need the cask, it's --cask mpv. Not gonna do it because I already have it. Okay, so that's how you install stuff. So once you found the name of the package by either by searching, well, by searching probably, and once you have the name of the package, you use this install command to install it. Yeah, for Macports it's gonna take a bit longer because it compiles everything. For Homebrew, sometimes it compiles, sometimes it just downloads the binary as it is, and it doesn't need to compile anything. One disadvantage of using the custom prefix is that for Homebrew it needs to compile more, because like those binaries that it compiles sometimes need to have the path basically built into them. When it compiles it hard codes the path into the binary basically. And if the path is different, if you use the custom path, then it needs to compile. So it might take a bit longer to install, but the advantage is that you have all of your, like this thing that I said about backing up. So say I use this installation for a while and I have everything like installed very well, but then I need to install something else, but I'm not sure like if it's gonna install a ton of packages that I don't need. And in the case of Homebrew, it's like I already said, it's quite difficult to manage. The thing that you can do is you can just copy your directory, like brew test to brew test.back for backup, and then you obviously need to specify because it's a folder, but you can just copy it, and then you'll have the backup. And then you can try installing it, and if it messes something up, you can just restore it from that backup. You can just remove your brew test, and then just rename your brew test .back to brew test, and everything will be the same as it was before. So I find that this is much better than having everything in the default location. And quite often those package managers, they do like real weird things. On Linux it's not an issue because like everything is built into the system and everything works well. But on a Mac it's a bit of a mess. So it's better to have it like under control like this, when you can back it up and then restore it. So that's the reason why I prefer to do it this way. So installation now, to uninstall, it's the same thing as install. I'll even use the same, I'm just gonna type it up again. Sudo port uninstall, and then the name of the package. You can also give it multiple names, by the way. So I don't know, like if I wanted to uninstall GraphViz as well, I can uninstall two of them at the same time. And installing multiple packages works the same way. So just after the install command, you type any number of packages, and it will go ahead and install it. One thing I kind of forgot to mention, and that just occurred to me, is that if you want, for Macports, sometimes it will ask you during the installation, it'll be asking you like, do you want to proceed, like those types of confirmation messages. And if you want to like leave it overnight, if it's a large program that needs to compile, you can pass in -n option, and that will suppress those confirmation messages, and it will just install everything. Like it will be yes to all of those messages basically. And well, if you do that, I do recommend that you back up your installation, your Macports installation, because what if it installs something like that you didn't want? But yeah, so that's the way to have it like install and not bother you with messages. A good way to like sometimes for some programs, my computer is not particularly fast. Like sometimes it takes more than 10 hours to install something. Sometimes, not always, but it depends on the program. But once you have it, it's very good. So that's that. That's how you basically answer yes to all the confirmation messages. So we were talking about uninstalling. So that's how you uninstall stuff. And for Homebrew, again, no root permissions needed. Brew uninstall, and then your packages. Again, any number of packages. So that's how you uninstall. And let's see. Yeah, if you want to upgrade a package, so if there's a newer version available, then the command is upgrade. So it's sudo port upgrade mpd. And for Homebrew, it's the same thing, brew upgrade, and then the name of the package. If you don't give this upgrade command any package names, it'll upgrade everything. So if there is a newer version available, then it'll upgrade, and then it'll upgrade it. So that's how it works. But like sometimes you want to keep older versions, so you might want to upgrade them one by one. I tend to upgrade them one by one personally, but that's a preference. Okay, so I think this this covers everything that I wanted to talk about. Thanks for watching. So I hope that this tutorial helped you understand how to install Macports and Homebrew on your Mac, and I hope that it will help you manage your like the programs that you have on your computer better, and that in turn will help you be more organized and productive, which will ultimately help your language learning as well. And yeah, this is it for this video. Thanks for watching. I hope this has been useful. Leave me a comment to let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next one.